The bride at the station. The train whistle cut through the stillness of the morning, a long, aching sound that echoed across the valley and into the small town of Willow Creek. Steam hissed from beneath the great iron wheels as the Santa Fe train slowed and finally stopped at the weather-beaten platform. The smell of coal smoke mixed with dust and hot sun, the kind of scent that lingered in a frontier town where everything felt temporary yet stubbornly alive. The McAllister children were already there, standing close together, eyes bright with excitement. Emma, 10 years old, had run all the way down the road to see the train, dragging her little brother Jacob behind her. Her braid had half come loose, and her dress carried the marks of dust and grass, but her face glowed with expectation. Jacob, only 7, squinted against the rising sun, clutching his sister's hand as though the world might sweep him away if he let go. Behind them came their father, John McAllister. He was a tall man, broad in the shoulders, his hair touched with early gray though he was still young. The weight of loss sat in his eyes. His wife Mary had been gone 2 years now, taken by fever, and though John worked the ranch and raised his children as best he could, a silence followed him everywhere he went. People in town called him steady, reliable, a man of honor. But what they did not see was the loneliness that pressed against his ribs every night when the house was too quiet. "Stay close," he told his children as the train doors opened. "We're here for business, not adventure." Emma nodded, though her eyes were already roaming over the passengers. Willow Creek was small. The arrival of a train was the closest thing to excitement. Miners with soot-streaked clothes climbed down, their faces eager for whiskey. A preacher stepped onto the platform with a weathered Bible under his arm. Families carrying everything they owned shuffled into the sunlight, chasing dreams of land and freedom. But among the bustle, Emma noticed her. At the far end of the platform stood a woman, still and quiet amid the noise. She held a small bundle wrapped in cloth, clutched close to her chest as though it contained all she owned. Her hair, black as midnight, was pinned neatly, though strands had come loose during the long journey. Her dress was plain, patched but cared for, showing dignity despite hardship. It wasn't her clothes that caught Emma's attention. It was her face, calm, composed, yet shadowed by something else. Her dark eyes scanned the platform, searching, waiting. With every minute that passed, the light in them dimmed, replaced by something heavy and uncertain. "Papa," Emma whispered, tugging John's sleeve. "Look." John followed her gaze. His eyes settled on the young woman, and he understood instantly. She was waiting for someone who wasn't coming. Jacob frowned, tugging at his father's vest. "Why's she all by herself?" John shifted uneasily. He had seen this before. Mail-order brides sometimes traveled thousands of miles, answering letters from men who promised them a future. But promises had a way of breaking, and not every man who sent for a wife showed up to claim her. Some never meant to. Others lost their courage or found another. And sometimes it was cruelty from the start. He tried to guide his children away. "Come on now. We've got work to do." But Emma stopped, her eyes locked on the woman. With a child's bravery that ignored custom or caution, she stepped closer. "Ma'am," she asked gently, "are you lost?" The woman looked startled, as though pulled from her thoughts. For a moment she did not answer. Then she spoke, her voice soft and careful, each word touched by an unfamiliar accent. "No, not lost. Waiting." "Waiting for who?" Jacob asked before his sister could. The woman lowered her gaze. Her fingers tightened on the bundle in her arms. "Husband," she whispered. "He not here." John cleared his throat, stepping forward. "Maybe he's been delayed. Sometimes wagons run late on these roads." But even as he said it, he knew she didn't believe it. Her eyes flicked to the road stretching away from the station, empty, dusty, unforgiving. Around them, the station-master and a porter exchanged looks, then went about their business. No one else paid her any mind. Passengers came and went, wagons rattled off toward town, and the train, after a hiss and whistle, pulled away, leaving the platform quieter, emptier. The woman remained. Alone. Emma bit her lip. Then, with sudden determination, she slipped her hand into the woman's. "Don't worry," she said with a certainty only a child could carry. "Pop'll help." John stiffened. "Emma." But Jacob, small face earnest, spoke louder than he ever had before. "She's our mama." The words landed like a stone dropped in still water. The world seemed to pause around them. John froze, staring at his son. The woman blinked, confusion flashing across her face. Then her lips trembled, though she did not cry. John crouched down to his children. "Now listen," he began carefully. "She isn't." But he faltered. He looked into their faces, so hopeful, so certain, and then at the woman's eyes. She was trying to stand tall, to remain composed, but he could see the ache beneath. The ache of being cast aside, of traveling across an ocean only to be abandoned in a strange land. "Name is Lien," she said softly, as though offering them the one piece of herself she still owned. "Came from China. Promised marriage. But—" she shook her head. "No husband." Emma squeezed her hand tighter. "You can come with us." John drew in a long breath. He should have corrected them, told them the world wasn't so simple. But when he saw Lien standing there, so small against the wide, empty horizon, so silent in her grief, his resolve wavered. He took off his hat and ran a hand through his hair. "Ma'am," he said finally, "you'll not last long out here alone. Let me get you a warm meal. Then, we'll see." The saloon kitchen was the only place in town that served food quickly. John found a table in the corner, away from the noise of cards and whiskey, and ordered stew. Lien sat quietly, hands folded in her lap. Her back was straight, her eyes lowered, yet John could see how tense she was. A few men at the bar had already turned to stare, whispers trailing after their glances. Foreign faces weren't common in Willow Creek, and curiosity often soured into cruelty. John ignored them, keeping his focus on his children. "Eat slow," he told Emma and Jacob as the bowls arrived. Emma, undeterred by the tension, leaned toward Lien. "Where's your home?" she asked. Lien hesitated, then answered. "Village. Near Big River. In China." Her words came haltingly, but her voice was steady. She described mountains in the distance, a mother who sewed, a father who worked with his hands. Jacob listened, wide-eyed. "Did you have chickens?" Lien almost smiled. "Yes." "Chickens." The children giggled, and for the first time that day, her face softened. John watched. He had not seen his children laugh so freely in months. Since Mary's passing, they had carried grief too large for their small shoulders. And now, here they were, finding comfort in a stranger. When the meal was done, John paid the cook and rose. Lien stood uncertainly, clutching her bundle again. "I not want trouble," she said quietly, her accent heavier when she was nervous. "You're not trouble," Emma said quickly, slipping her hand into Lien's once more. A place to belong. The McAllister Ranch sat on a wide stretch of land, where golden grass rolled toward the mountains and the river carved its path through willow trees. It was a hard land, demanding sweat and patience, but it had been John's home since boyhood. Now, as the wagon rolled up the familiar dirt road, he felt it was somehow changed. Lien sat quietly in the back beside the children. Emma was already chattering about the barn, the chickens, and the apple tree that grew behind the house. Jacob leaned against Lien, half asleep but unwilling to let go of her hand. She held them both, her dark eyes drifting over the land as if measuring what her life might become here. When they reached the house, John jumped down first and helped her step off the wagon. Her shoes touched the dust, and she looked up at the wooden house with its weathered boards and crooked porch. It was no grand estate, just a rancher's home, but she bowed her head as though standing before a place of honor. "This is home," Emma announced proudly. Lien nodded, almost whispering, "Home." That night, John lay awake long after the children had gone to bed. Lien was asleep in the spare room, a place once used for Mary's sewing. He could hear Emma's light snores, Jacob's restless tossing, and the unfamiliar sound of a woman's soft breathing from the other side of the wall. His heart wrestled with questions. What was he doing, bringing a stranger into his home? What would the town say? Already, whispers had followed them when they left the saloon. Willow Creek was not kind to those who were different. And yet, he thought of the children's faces, the way they had clung to her, and the laughter at the dinner table. Something had shifted, something he couldn't deny. He turned on his side, staring at the window where moonlight streamed in. "Mary," he whispered into the night, "I don't know what I'm supposed to do." The silence offered no answer, but in his heart he felt only the memory of his children's laughter, echoing like a blessing. The days that followed brought both ease and unease. Lien threw herself into work with quiet determination. At first, she asked permission for every small thing. Can I sweep? Can I cook? Can I feed chickens? But soon she moved with steady confidence. By the end of the week, the house looked brighter, the meals warmer, and the children followed her everywhere as though she had always been there. John watched from a distance. He was a man used to order and control, but he found himself strangely unsettled by the gentleness that had slipped into his home. He caught himself listening for her voice, noticing the way the children's eyes shone when she praised them, the careful way she mended his shirt without a word. But the town noticed too. One Sunday, when John brought his family to church, the whispers began. "That's McAllister's new woman. Chinese, ain't she? Lord have mercy, bringing her here like she belongs." The stares were sharp, cutting like knives. Lien sat quietly in the pew, her hands folded, her eyes lowered. The children bristled, confused and angry. Emma whispered, "Why are they looking at her like that, Papa?" John set his jaw. "Because they don't understand." After service, an old rancher named Tom Caldwell stopped John by the steps. "You best think twice, McAllister," he said, his voice low but edged. "This town don't take kindly to strangers, especially not her kind." John's eyes hardened. "She's under my roof. That makes her mine to protect." Caldwell spat in the dust. "Then you'll be protectin' more than you bargained for." That night, as the children slept, John found Lien sitting alone on the porch, looking up at the stars. She seemed so small against the vast sky, but her shoulders were square, her face calm. "You heard them," John said quietly as he stepped outside. "Yes." Her voice was steady, though her hands folded tight in her lap. "I know. Not wanted." He sat beside her, the boards creaking under his weight. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then he sighed. "They're fools. You've done more for my children in a week than most folks do in a lifetime." She turned her head, her dark eyes meeting his. "But you want me here." The question struck deeper than he expected. He thought of Mary, of promises whispered beside her deathbed, of his vow never to take another wife. Yet here sat this woman, abandoned and alone, giving his children laughter again. He could not lie. "I don't know what I want," he admitted. "But I know I don't want you gone." A silence hung between them, heavy with unspoken things. Then she bowed her head. "Thank you." The weeks turned into months. Work on the ranch was hard, and Lien learned quickly. She rose before dawn to help milk the cows, gathered eggs with Jacob, hung laundry with Emma. Her laughter grew freer, her English stronger. Yet prejudice remained. At the mercantile, women whispered behind their hands. At the saloon, men muttered under their breath. One evening, trouble came. John was away mending a fence when 3 young cowhands rode up, drunk from whiskey. They leaned on the fence, jeering as Lien fed the chickens with the children nearby. "Hey, China girl," one of them called. "Ain't you lost? This ain't San Francisco." The others laughed, their words slurred but sharp. Jacob stepped forward, fists balled. "Don't talk to her like that." The men only laughed harder. One spat in the dirt. "Boy, she ain't your mama." But before he could sneer another word, John's voice cut through the air like a whip. "Get off my land." The cowhands turned, sneering fading when they saw him. He rode hard into the yard, rifle resting across his saddle. His eyes burned cold. "You heard me," he said. "Off my land. Now." The men muttered, cursed, but turned their horses and rode off, dust trailing behind. John dismounted, his jaw tight. He turned to see Lien standing with the children huddled against her skirts. Her face was pale, but her eyes steady. "I told you," she said softly, "I not wanted." John strode to her, voice firm. "They were wrong. You're wanted here." The children clung to her tighter, as if sealing his words. That night, as the house lay quiet, John stood in the doorway of the spare room where Lien slept. She was sitting by the window, mending Emma's dress in the lamplight. She looked up at him, her face calm, her eyes searching. "Why you do this?" she asked. "Why keep me here? Town against you." John leaned against the frame, arms crossed. He searched for an answer, but only one came. "Because my children love you. Because I—" His voice faltered, then steadied. "Because I think I do too." The needle stilled in her hand. Silence stretched between them, fragile and full. Then, slowly, a tear slipped down her cheek, though her smile was small and steady. "I thought, no man ever want me," she whispered. "But maybe, God bring me here for you." John stepped closer, his hand brushing hers. For the first time since Mary's passing, he felt the weight in his chest lift. Not gone, never gone, but lighter, as though love had found its way back into his home. Months later, spring came to Willow Creek. The apple tree behind the house bloomed white, the fields grew green, and the children ran laughing through the grass. The church bell rang one bright morning, and the people of the town gathered, whispering as they always did. But this time, the whispers were silenced as John McAllister stood at the front, his children at his side, and Leanne beside him in a simple white dress she had sewn herself. The preacher spoke, the vows were said, and John took her hand in his, steady and sure. Emma beamed, Jacob grinned, and when the preacher asked if the children welcomed her, they spoke as one. "She is our mama." The church was silent, then slowly, grudgingly, the townsfolk bowed their heads. Some still held prejudice, but others saw the truth, that love had built this family stronger than any whisper could tear down. And as John looked at Leanne, her eyes shining with tears, he knew he had been given a gift he had never expected. Not a replacement. Not a bargain struck. But a woman who had been abandoned, now cherished. A bride who had been left, now chosen. A mother for his children. And a partner for his heart.